Hi friends, I'm back, okay? This is a continuation of my first lecture on the third phase of badge number 2. We were talking about conditional formatting, and unlike past lectures and videos, I actually tried to lay out my notes of coverage, topic coverage, down here as you see on your screen below the actual worksheet that we're working on, okay? Now, let me interrupt myself quickly to tell you about, let me see, we made it about to here. Okay, we were talking about data bars, and I demonstrated how data bars work. That's one of the many ways that you can highlight things with conditional formatting. So let's roll back a little bit on two separate things. Okay, what is a condition? Now, if you've taken advanced math courses, you've learned about conditional logic where you say, if this is the case, do this. Or you might say, if this is the case and this is also the case, do this, otherwise don't. You can say, if this is the case or something else is the case, then do this, otherwise don't. So there are all kinds of ways that you can combine logical statements. Okay, now that is what Excel is trying to do for you here. Now, that sounds like very heady or cerebral mathematical stuff, but you know what? It's common sense, because as a business person or as a person involved in your own entrepreneurial startup, whatever, you might be faced with a massive list of things you're trying to weed out. For example, you might want to say, of all my customers, I want to look up all the ones who are located in New Hampshire, who have sales greater than 100,000 but less than 1 million, and who have placed an order with me within the last year. Okay, now given a massive list of customers, data, transactions, as a boss, as a supervisor, as a person controlling your own business, these are things that you might want to do. Now, you can hire a person who is fluent in Excel and say to him or her, please, would you do this? But that person might go home at 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and you might be still working there at 7 or 8 o'clock, and you want to get this answer for yourself immediately. It's so easy to do. You can access all the databases in your company that are based on Excel, and there are some other possibilities as well that we'll get into in another lecture, and do the search yourself. It's that easy, okay? Once you master conditional formatting, and it is exactly that, it is quite easy, okay? So that's what we were doing. And I'm going to give another lecture when you start going for badge number 3 about more advanced topics in conditional formatting using some of the logic combinations I mentioned. For now, I'm keeping it simple just to get you used to how conditional formatting in the language of Excel works. Okay, so that's what a condition is, as you see on line 30. Okay, if something is true, do this. If not, don't do it or do something else. True or false. It might actually be based on a numeric value. If something's greater than 100, do this. If something's less than 100, do that. If something's greater than 100 or less than 200, do something else. That's exactly what we're doing here. Okay, I have to pause for just one moment. Bear with me, please. Okay, my apologies for the interruption. All right, so again, we're talking about conditional formatting. I've just re-described to you what a condition is and how Excel looks at it, and why it might be useful to you in running a business or running a department or doing something for your boss in a work setting, okay? Even managing your own personal finances. So now, there's one other aspect I wanted to remind you about, and that is ranges of columns and rows. Now, in my initial lecture, I indicated that you can do things to a column. When I say do things, I mean things like formatting and sorting and such, as we've seen in other lectures. You can do it to a row, and I indicated how you can left click, drag, hold, drag, and let go, and that's called a block, okay? But what I did want to also emphasize to you is that you can do the same thing for ranges of columns. Like, let's say I want to do a certain formatting to columns C through E. I can rest my cursor in the header of column C, left click, hold, go to the right, drag, let go when I get to E, okay? Now, all the way down to the bottom of this massive spreadsheet, everything that I do for formatting, sorting, whatever, will apply to all 3 or more of those columns depending on what you do. Not just one column, but many. I can do the same thing for rows. I can click on row 22, and it will just, whatever I do for formatting, for example, I could turn all my text to red. That will all happen within column 22. If, on the other hand, I wanted it to happen from column 22 to 30, I, in the row header, would left-click and hold, drag down to 30, let go, all right, and all the way out to the right of this large spreadsheet, you would see that formatting happen. Okay, so I just wanted to review that with you just in case. Now, as of the previous lecture, we discussed data bars on a couple of my columns, ranges, sales, and cost. Okay, let's talk for a moment about color scales and icon sets. All right, so I'm going to re-highlight by left-clicking, holding, and dragging all of my sales. All right, I come up to my ribbon, I click on conditional formatting, I left-click. All right, now color scales, I'm going to just look at what they have to offer. As usual in Excel, they give you a couple of samples and then they give you all kinds of rules that you can manipulate. I do not have time in this lecture to cover all of those, maybe in future lectures, or I can encourage you to explore and experiment as always. But look at some of what they've given you here. I'm going to click on the upper left. It says green, yellow, red color scale. That means it's going to go from green down to red. It's going to select the highest values and use green. Then in a rainbow type of gradient, it's going to lessen the green as the values get lower. Then it goes into yellow. Then it gets paler and paler yellow. And then it goes into the red for the lowest numbers. So if I left click on that, there it is. Okay, Massachusetts sales we know are the highest at 150. We see that that's bright green. The green pales as you move into lower sales for Connecticut and Rhode Island. Then we move into the yellows as we get to New Hampshire, New York. Then if you really have a sharp eye, you can see that the yellow gets a little bit less intense for Vermont and New Jersey. And then finally we move into oranges for Maine and Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina. By now you're in red. Okay, so those are preset computer settings. Now I'm going to click on conditional formatting again. And I'm going to click on color scales again, and this time I'm going to go down to the second one on the left side, row 2, leftmost, blue, white, red. Okay, again, it goes from the top down to the bottom, so in this case the highest values will be in the deepest blue, then we move to white, then grayish, then we move to, gray first, then white, then we move into the pinks and the reds. By the time we get to the lowest value in North Carolina, we are fully red. Okay, so now I'm going to come up to undo in the green bar, the counterclockwise pointing arrow, and I click twice and undo everything I just did. Okay, so that is how color scales work. All right, now there's another one we can use too. So let's reselect by dragging and letting go past sales. Left click on conditional formatting, and let's look at icon sets. Again, you get a lot to choose from. They've given you some presets here. So let's click on the, we've got directional, shape, indicators, ratings. I'm going to click on the one that says shapes, the uppermost. It says 3 traffic lights. I'm going to left click on that and look at that, okay? So once again, the purpose of these icons is to tell you where your highest values are. Now again, we're only looking at 11 lines here, but we could be looking at easily 1,100 lines. You can sort them, of course, but you might be in a hurry to simply scan a large list and see who your key sales volume customers or locations are, like here. So in this case, rather than sorting, this is a nice handy way to flag the ones that are of the highest value. Okay, so once again, we see that Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island are the highest values. The computer has assigned a green light to those, as you can see. Then it scales down to yellow for something between 85,000 to 95,000. And then the reds would be, looks like the lowest, 31,000 through 65,000. Now, here's one little caveat I want to give you, friends. All right, you see the parenthetical comment I placed here? Beware the indiscriminate cutoffs. You might be saying to yourself, well, why did the computer decide to go to yellow once it gets to 95,000. Okay. Do you have any control over that? Yes, you do. The computer assigned a default to that. I believe it used 2/3 and 1/3, like 67%. Okay, it flags anything in 67% or higher as green, anything from 33% to 67% as yellow, 33% or lower as red. Okay, the computer simply did that. I did not adjust anything. But now let's say as the boss, you want to see something that follows a more exacting rule. You might want to say, I don't like that 67%, 2/3, right? I don't like that 33%, 1/3. I want to control that. Okay, well, yes, you have control over that if you know what to do. So I'm going to highlight it again and click on my conditional formatting again. Okay, and I'm going to click on Manage Rules. Okay, now when I click on Manage Rules, this screen comes up. Once again, like all screens in Excel, there's a lot of hidden power here. It's telling you this is the icon set that you've selected, traffic lights red, yellow, green, and it tells you the range. Sheet number 1, this is sheet number 1. There is only one sheet, as you can see way down here in the lower left corner. We've covered that before in our Excel course. You can also see that it's giving you some absolute ranges. All right, the $ means it's a fixed absolute range. Start there at that location D8 all the way to D18. Those are the ones I highlighted, okay? So I want you to look down here in that little drop down, Manage Rules, where it says Edit Rule, okay? I'm going to left click on Edit Rule. All right, there it is. There's the magic, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in the bottom half of this little window, it says Display. And this is where you control where that green, yellow, or red light happen. You can use any icons you want. I just happen to pick those. Okay, so look over here. If you look halfway across to the right in that section that says Display, you say that here's the rule. Greater than or equal to 67%, then use green. All right, greater than or equal to 33%, okay, I'm sorry, less than 67%, but greater than 33, I stand corrected there, then you will use yellow, and if not, if it's below 33%, if it's less than 33%, then you'll use red. Okay, now you decide that you want to use, instead of 67% and 33%, you want to separate it into, let's try 75% for green, 25% for yellow, less than 25% will be red. So I go over here to these value cells, okay, and I'm going to change that 67 to 75. I click in the 33 value zone, highlight it, and I'm going to change that to 25. So using the same rules of greater than, equal to, less than, I've now changed the 67 and 33 to 75, 25%. I'm going to click on OK. It gives me a chance to verify. I click on OK again. And now you see that my green lights and yellow lights have changed. This time, anything above 75% of my total values is going to register with a green light. Okay? Anything greater than 25% but less than 75% is yellow. And finally, anything below 25% is going to be red. All right? So that's how you can take control of those rules. Now, I want to point something else out to you in the meantime. I just left-clicked on conditional formatting once again. If you want to get rid of everything, if you've gotten yourself buried very deeply into all these conditional formatting rules, and you say, I just want out, well, obviously there are two ways you can do it at least. Number one, always save everything before you start tweaking. You can always erase everything and go back to that, okay? That's what we veterans always do. But the other thing you can do is you can come down to this the seventh little choice under this drop down where it says Clear Rules, and you can just wipe everything out. I'm going to click on it and you'll see what I mean. Clear Rules from selected cells, and there it goes. All right, now I want to get back to where I was, so I'm going to click on undo. And by the way, that's another way that you can back yourself out of trouble, is use that undo arrow. Now the problem with the undo arrow is if you happen to save a file and you were part of the way down a trail, you can only back up to that last point. All right, so be careful of that. So please, again, make sure you always make backup copies. All right, very good. So those are icon sets. We've covered color scales and icon sets. And you understand now what I mean by the indiscriminate cutoff. The cutoff is something you can control. You just have to know where to go and how to do it, and I hope that that illustration has been helpful. Okay? You can set some of your own rules for color highlights. Let's see what I mean by that. Let's pick sales once again. I'm going to left click on conditional formatting. I'm going to set new rule. Okay? Now, new formatting rule, there are a lot of choices here. A 2-color scale. Let's look at what it's offering me as a default. It says take the lowest value and make it orange. Take the highest value and make it yellow. Okay, now when you play with these color scales, obviously you know what that does by now. It highlights based on highest to lowest or lowest to highest. But sometimes if you're a color purist, the color combinations aren't really what you're looking for. For example, I would say I'd like my brighter color, in this case orange, to be the highest value instead of the lowest. If I just click on this right now, you can see that my highest value is that strange yellow color, and as the values decrease, they move closer to a pure orange. Okay, let's undo that and let's try that again. Click on conditional formatting. Okay, I'm going to click on new rule. And I'm going to say, let's do something a little more intuitive. I'm going to click on where it says color under lowest value. All right, now let's let the rainbow work for us. I want to start with a light green. Okay, then I'm going to go to the maximum highest value. And I will select a bluish color. So as we move from green, the lowest value, to the highest value, blue, that's a little more intuitive. I'm going to click on OK. All right, and you can see what happens. Okay, the bright blue is for the highest, 150, 140, 120. The blue is diminishing and going more into a green shade until you get into the bright green, which is 31,000. So friends, you can control that as well. And that is what I meant here by setting your own rules for a custom format. I remind you, it can be 2 colors, it can be the classic setting, it can be 3 tones. You have a lot of leeway, a lot of latitude here. Again, experiment, explore, and practice. Okay, I am going to give you a quiz based on all of these controls that you can adjust after maybe one more video lecture. Okay, so let me back out of this and see what else we have. All right, multiple cell conditions. All right, now, up until this point, we've talked about highlighting anything above a certain number, below a certain number. Now, you can combine this for active management. So let's try this. Let's look at sales and let's look at cost and assume that you're the boss and you're looking at obviously maximizing your sales and minimizing your cost. That leads to the greatest profit, rather. So let's experiment and say, I want to highlight all my sales that are greater than 90,000 and show all the costs lower than 75,000. Okay, I want to do 2 separate operations here. I click on conditional formatting, highlight cells greater than, and I'm going to enter into here 90,000. I'm going to leave it red, okay? That's the classic format. Anything greater than 90,000 is now highlighted in red. Now I'm going to come over to the cost and look for anything below 75,000. What am I doing, guys? I'm looking for the biggest spread. Biggest sales, lowest cost. That returns the greatest difference, the greatest profit to me. Once again, click conditional formatting, highlight cells less than. This time I click on less than. I'm going to put in 75,000. But now watch. I don't want to make those red. I want to make them a different color. So let's go with green, green on green, okay? I left click on that, I left click on OK. Okay, now here's the problem. All of the states that have the highest sales don't happen to have the lowest cost. There's no convergence between my red and my green. Okay, problem. So I'm going to back out of that because I'm trying to find the states where I have the biggest bang for my sales buck. Okay, again, this is not an accounting course. This is just an illustration. You want to play with these numbers if you are the boss or the responsible person. So I'm going to back out of both of those conditions. Instead, let's try this, friends. All right, this was no good. So I'm going to try sales above 90, cost below 100. Let's do the same thing we just did. So I'll take all of my sales, highlight greater than 90,000. I'll leave them in red. Okay. Past cost. I'm going to highlight all of those. Conditional formatting. I said below 100,000. Highlight cells less than 100,000. I am going to change that to green. There we are. Now we've got something that we can act on as a manager. We see that in Rhode Island, in New Hampshire, and in New York. Those, oh, excuse me, I hit the wrong key there. And in New York, let me re-highlight that for you. There we are, and there we are. Okay, in those three states, we seem to have the most effective spread between sales and cost. So for whatever reason, if you're focusing on those states, you might want to give those special attention for whatever purpose, writing a report, mobilizing your employees, okay? You could do it on the largest mathematical spread, you could do it on the smallest, that's up to you. But this is a beautiful example of how conditional formatting can work for you. We are out of time, so I'm going to stop here and make a decision about whether I can do a third lecture for you before we proceed on to the last test in our second badge, and have yourselves a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.